Welcome to Aftermath. Today we're going to be discussing the number one way that you might be losing money. How about our second question is, how can we make money fun? Did the first answer for the first question step on the second question? Then this episode is made for you. And lastly, everyone has money rules. Well, Scott's rules is more of a Scott rule, and it is a must listen. Right now, happening, Aftermath, Rauce Padgett, Scott Brown, tune in. What is the number one way people lose money? Do not say Starbucks. Please don't say cold brew or anything with matcha. I am that kind of guy.
Yeah, no, I won't rain on your parade there. I mean, I think that the number one thing people do that costs them money or costs them the ability to accumulate wealth is they overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And what I mean by that is, especially in today's society, and I'm going to act like the old man telling the story about walking up the hill in the snow both ways. But the reality is, I think most people, and I'm going to, again, cliched, but TikTok, Instagram, things like that, where most of the content is geared towards the short term. In a year, you can buy this and it'll be worth that, right? Yeah. You'll have $1, it'll be $3, or whatever the situation is, whatever the description is in the TikTok or the Instagram. Do you say in the TikTok? Is that what the kids say?
It's in the TikTok. All I know is
Ed's laughing. Ed, is it in the TikTok? Is that right, Nick?
In the TikTok, on the TikTok.
Is it a TikTok or is it something else?
All I know is
it's a TikTok.
My savings account is TikToking. That's what I know.
Right on.
So, this thing's got to get bigger.
So I think the problem is that people, especially young people, are so inundated with information that they don't really know where to turn. Nick and I were just having this conversation. There's so much information out there. They've come to believe, unlike their parents and their grandparents, that money can be made in a short period of time. And I'm not saying that's impossible, but it's unlikely. It's you should say, I'm not that, probably not going to be that person.
Could you compare it to almost like, I mean, maybe this is just the dude talking, but it's almost like sports, professional sports, where like, yeah, there are exceptions of people becoming the top 0.001% of basketball. But do you know how many college basketball players there are? Do you know how many high school players there are that never make it to the league? And to just spoon feed this weird metaphor, what I'm trying to say is that some people can go ahead and make a lot of money in a short amount of time.
Yep.
But the numbers are stacked up against you. That's such a screaming minority, and that's the problem. They're screaming because they want you to know that, hey, I did it, but that's not just for everybody.
Well, and they want you to think they did it even if they didn't do it. So it's, I'm LeBron James, just take my word for it, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of that, right? And then they show up at the basketball court and they're not LeBron James 9 times out of 10. So to continue your analogy is, yes, you should assume you are not the LeBron James of money, right? You should assume you need to take 10 years to do whatever it is you're trying to do. And again, to overestimate what you do in a year, but underestimate what 10 years can do for you, we know statistically that over a 10-year period, a lot can be accomplished. It's not instant gratification, obviously, but to delay the gratification, to save, to develop process. I mean, it's pretty simple, right? If you take $1,000 as a young person and you put it into some TikTok scheme and thinking it's going to turn into 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 or 100, which I'm sure there are TikToks that say,
I'm taking my talents to TikTok.
I'm taking it to TikTok. I'm the LeBron James of this $1,000. The reality is you're probably not. And what you underestimate is that if you take that $1,000 and you save it every year, and at the end of 10 years you have $50,000, if you earn 5% on $1,000, that's $50. Okay, cool, but not awesome, right? But if you have $50,000 and you earn 10%, that's $5,000, right? So you get to the end of the year, you got the $50,000 in your 401k, and you go 10%. Oh yeah. Oh wait, that's $5,000. My money made me $5,000 by earning 10%. But until you get to that mass, till you get to the point where your savings is investable and it's accumulated to the point where you can invest it and it have impact, because that's the problem, right? Somebody starts a 401k, this is no good. They put $100 a month in for the first year, they got $1,200, they earned 10% and they made, whatever, $120.
Yeah.
And they think, well, what good is that going to do me? Cut to 10 years later, that's $100,000 because you kept doing that. Now you earn 10%. That's $10,000, right? So you have to get to the mass of capital where it becomes effective for you and where it's meaningful to you. And I see that with people in 401ks. Typically that threshold's about 50,000, where they start to realize in a good year how impactful that's going to be long term for them. Before that, it's more theoretical. Like, you should put money in a 401k, you should get the match, and old guys like me keep preaching that. But the reality is, until you've really kind of experienced that, it's hard to get your head around.
So to answer the question as short and as small as words as possible, it's actually, I worded it poorly. It's not what's the number one way people lose money. What's the number one way people stop accumulating wealth? I think that's the right wording of the question, because it's not like you misplaced it. It's you're trying to keep and keep keeping.
You need to keep keeping.
You got to keep keeping, and you can't keep keeping in a year, but you can do it for 10 years, and you will love that end result.
Well, if you sacrifice that $100 a month as a young person, you're like, that's a thing I could do. That's a place I could go.
That's 2 video games.
That's a video game. That's sneakers. That's whatever. And it's not impactful to you. You have to kind of be patient to get to the impactful point. But once that's concrete for people, once that has set in for people, they never look back. Because again, once you get to that kind of corpus of your investments, meaning the mass or the wealth that you've saved, and it's 50 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand, whatever the number is, for some people, a light bulb goes off and they're like, oh, my money made me 10 grand and I made 50 grand this year, but my money also made me 10 grand. And you start to realize how that looks over the next decade or two.
You know, I think you just answered my second question, but I'm still going to ask it because I hear so many people have a negative relationship with money. And it's always the dead president's fault.
Yep.
And it's never
that
theirs.
Andrew Jackson, he's problematic.
It's all him, man.
Yeah.
It's all him. But my question for you, and I feel like you just answered it at the tail end of that first question, is how can we make money fun? I mean, maybe that's the, no pun intended, $1 billion question, but people's relationship with money is, when I talk to people about it, it's almost close to the last thing they want to talk about. They're mad about it. It's not fun. Would you say that, and I think this was the answer that I just heard, was that how do you make money fun is when you have money work for you and not maybe you solely just work for money.
I mean, honestly, that's you've hit the nail on the head. So Morgan Housel, who wrote The Psychology of Money.
You nailed it on the head. No, I'm just quoting you.
I'm just, trying to spread the love here.
I appreciate it.
But Morgan Housel, who wrote The Psychology of Money, said that very recently that saving is buying future independence, which I didn't say, so I can't take credit for, but I love the statement.
Hit it one more time for the people in the back.
Saving is purchasing future independence. And the reason people have such a bad relationship with money is because money is controlling them. They are dependent on a job. They're dependent on a person. The most bitter people I've ever met in my life in terms of finances are people who are waiting to inherit money, because that money isn't theirs. They didn't make it, and it's controlling their day-to-day behavior because they're not saving, they're not being responsible, and therefore they're bitter about the fact that they have to wait for a person to die.
And throw that. That's
to
a
get
dark
the money.
What about your uncle, man? He was a good guy.
Yeah. How's he feeling?
Yeah.
Oh, entered the hospital, did he?
Really? I'll send flowers.
Exactly. I think that once money no longer controls you, and now I know people are going to watch this and say, well, that's easy for you to say, and it is, by the way, but it wasn't always that way for me. When I was young, I had struggles like every young person: credit card debt, bought a car I couldn't afford, made a lot of decisions that weren't great. And money controlled me, and I fretted about it. And every dollar, what do I do with this dollar? I want to do the best thing, but I want to have fun, but I want to do the best thing. And this goes back and forth and back and forth, and it confuses people. And back then we didn't have social media. So I didn't have constant, I wasn't getting beat over the head every day by some lifestyle that somebody was pretending to have that I thought I should have. I mean, there was enough of it on TV. There was enough of it around me that I was aware of it, but it didn't consume me. So I had time to mature and grow up and not make huge mistakes by buying the wrong crypto or investing in the wrong meme stock or whatever it was. And I'm not picking on those things. Those are fun things for some people. But the reality is that I was given time to mature without getting beat up by social media. And I think that what people to make money fun, money becomes fun. I don't know if that's the right term, but it becomes less imposing and less domineering in your life when you understand how it works. And I think the biggest problem people have, you and I were talking earlier, and you said you were talking to some folks and they didn't even know what question. You said, I'm going to come do the show.
Yeah. Do you guys have any money questions? And they just kind of scratched their head and went, are you asking for a math question? I'm like, how do you... Hello, is this thing on? No, about mortgages or how to make $1 a little bit more than $1. Have you guys had these thoughts? And they were not ready to have fun. Once again, in air quotes, they weren't ready to even have topics or conversations about having money not being so domineering, as you said. You know, it was a little jarring for me.
Yeah, and I think that's unfortunate. I think social media has also made it not okay to ask questions. I think it's made it not okay to not be an expert, because what people are seeing on social media is experts that aren't really experts.
Yeah.
But they're faking it. So therefore, if you see a 25-year-old driving a Lamborghini, living in a giant house, and talking about how rich they are, you think, well, they must know something I don't know. And how silly do I feel? And how sad do I feel? How insecure does that make me feel? Not even that they have that stuff, but I don't know what they did to get that stuff, right? So I think it makes you vulnerable. I think it makes you upset. I just don't think it's a healthy environment. And if you can get past that as a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old, you'll be so much better off if you can shut that noise off. I'm not saying don't enjoy your TikToks and your funny cat videos. That's all fine and dandy. But if the more you go down that rabbit hole with those people who are pulling you into the rabbit hole, the harder it's going to be for you to dig your way out.
You know, it's funny that I've never heard this towards the financial aspect of social media, but what's the one thing you hear about thirst traps and all these models on Instagram is like, none of that's real, dude. It's photoshopped.
Right.
They are bending the photo to their will to get the ideal image. And that's what financial advisors, for the most part, are also doing on social media, is that they are bending their message, their will, their shot, their frame to get exactly what they want, which is you to believe that, hey, this is how I did it, and this is the only way to do it.
Yeah, it's very frustrating to me because, as you and I were discussing earlier, if we do a podcast, which we're doing, and we do a short reel saying just save more, be realistic, have process, have discipline, nobody will watch that reel, right? And it's unfortunate. So I think if we can, and I think young people, I don't know, you tell me, I think people who are younger in their 20s maybe are starting to get it a little bit. They're starting to see the falsehoods, the fakery. They're starting to see it. I don't know that they all are. I know young men are particularly susceptible to this between the ages of, say, 15 and 23. We know that 70% of all young men in that age group have a gambling app on their phone, which is not a good thing.
Maybe I'm guilty.
So I just hope we can get to a point where that becomes passe and people are like, really, you're posting the Lamborghini picture and you're the financial advisor. I'm trying to bend it back. I would like this podcast or whatever I'm doing to bend it back. And I get it that I'm 60 years old and the 22-year-old isn't going to probably listen to me anyway. But maybe when they're 23 or they're 25, they'll think, what did that morons say back in the day on that After Whatever podcast. So I'm trying to bend that narrative back.
Here's your third question. Financial advisors always, I don't want to say that they have these concrete rules, but they have these isms, 50, 40, 10, the 30, 30, 30 rule, or what, like all these different rules. And I think you kind of just gave one tiny rule when it comes to the whole social media aspect of trying to obtain and keep your wealth. What are your rules when it comes to financial advice and wealth, if any at all? Is there any concrete black and white rules that someone can listen to this and then walk away going, I'm going to do this, or I'm never going to do that again?
Yeah, I mean, anybody that I work with or that knows me very well knows I'm not a dogma guy. I don't like absolutes. I don't like you must do this or you must do that, because what works for one person may not work for another person. I'll give you a classic example is somebody would come to me and they say, hey, I just inherited $200,000 and I have a $200,000 mortgage and the rate is 5%. Should I pay off that mortgage? And most people I think watching this would say, yes, absolutely pay off that mortgage. But I would say it depends. If I say, well, if I look at that person and I know them, we'll use Ed as an example, and I know Ed's a good saver. And I know that to pay off a 5 or 6% mortgage is a guaranteed return to Ed. Right? He pays that off. He doesn't pay that amount anymore. Yeah. He doesn't pay the 5 or 10 grand a year he's paying in interest. That's an instant win for Ed, right? So I would say to Ed, yes, Ed, pay off your mortgage. And the reason I would say that is because I know Ed is going to save the 200 grand back up, right? Conversely, Nick may bring the same question to me. I got 200 grand. I have a 6% mortgage. Should I pay it off? I know Nick's not a good saver.
No, Nick's not a good saver.
Nick is not a good saver. No offense, Nick. We'll talk about that later. But I would say to Nick, no, I want you to take that 200 grand. I want you to put it away into a savings account or into municipal bonds or something boring and just leave it there. Because what I do know is Nick's going to pay his mortgage. I don't think if Nick puts the 200 grand in, if he puts that 200 grand in, he's going to take the $2 grand a month he's spending on the mortgage and he's going to blow it, right? Ed's not going to do that. Exact same situation.
Two different
outcomes or answers. So again, I don't love the 60-40 rule or the top 10 things you got to do. I mean, Americans are so caught up in our top 10 list.
Well, it's because it's easy. Yeah. We love numbers.
It's a cheat.
We are still used to TRL.
If I do these 5 things, everything will be wonderful, except for those 5 things won't work in a year, right? 3 of them will be obsolete. 2 of them will be terrible, and you're starting over again. So,
and each one of those 5 things is actually like 4 or 5 things within each
one of those things.
Yes, it's never as black and white as you want it to be.
So one of the reasons I hate social media is because it's like the news now. Everything's a soundbite. These 5 things, do them right now. And oh, by the way, here's the link at the bottom to do them with me. Right?
Yeah.
That should be an instant tell, right? If the guy driving the Lamborghini with the big mansion has a link where you can be like him, you should not click that link. Because all that is a grab for money. Social media is designed to draw in people and to advertise, and sometimes it's fine. I might buy a pair of shoes or something off social media, but at the end of the day, your financial security should not be linked to some idiot driving an orange Ferrari who pretends to be living in a big house with a link at the bottom to learn how to be rich like he is.
Looking at you, Ty Lopez. There Too soon. All right. So in conclusion, that's one of the biggest ways people can lose money. And I am still so happy Scott didn't say Starbucks. We found out how to make money fun, but actually by rewording the question of how do you keep your wealth that you've earned? And you found out Scott's rule. And that's a pretty good rule. And thank you so much for listening to Aftermath. We will see you next week. Get money, keep money, love money. I don't know. I felt right at the end. I don't know what I said there.
I like it.
Got rich and die trying real fast at the end.